How's it going, everyone? Grim here. I have another unboxing today, and we will be looking at the Space Marines Primaris Repulsor. And this is an interesting vehicle. And in order to explain why it's so interesting, I want to spend some time to give you a little bit of background on the lore of the Primaris Repulsor and the Primaris Space Marines specifically. So, if we go back to the 31st millennium, right before the Horus Heresy, you had all of these different legions of Space Marines, right? And they were all loyal to the Emperor and the Imperium. And then, of course, Horus did the whole betrayal thing, and they had the big civil war, the Horus Heresy, and the Space Marines all eventually broke up into two factions, the Loyalist Space Marines and then the Traitorous Space Marines, right? So you had the Loyalists, which obviously just continue to follow the Empire and serve the Imperium, and then the traitorous ones that followed Chaos, the Chaos Demons, and Horus to basically go to the warp and be the bad guys. Now, before, during, and after the Horus Heresy, they were just all Space Marines, right? And then they did the whole Civil War thing. But as all Space Marines, they all had access to the same equipment, right? They were all using the same bolt guns, the same bolt rifles, the same las guns, the same Razorbacks and Rhinos and Predators, and the same Spartan tanks and all of that. Same Thunderhawk gunships. And they were fighting each other. And then 10,000 years later, you get the 41st millennium, and you have Warhammer, the setting for Warhammer 40K. And the Games Workshop did something pretty smart. Obviously, the Space Marines are the poster child for Warhammer, so they have like the most different types of units, right? The most different HQ, the most different vehicles and heavies and flyers and aircraft and all that kind of stuff. And so they also decided to make a distinction between the Adeptus Astartes, the Loyalist Space Marines, and then separate from the Heretic Astartes or the Chaos Space Marines by introducing the whole concept of the Primaris. So the Primaris Space Marines were now these slightly bigger, slightly stronger, slightly faster, slightly better Space Marine from what was existing prior to the Primaris. And of course, if you're introducing a new Space Marine, some people argue they introduced this new Space Marine to make the Space Marine model a little bit bigger and a little bit beefier than the models of Space Marines that Games Workshop was producing prior to 9th edition. But anyway, some people argue that, when you introduce the Primaris Space Marines, then now you're going to introduce these different vehicles that are Primaris specific. And that's what this one is. This is the Primaris Repulsor. And this is, as you can see, is basically a tank. And if you look carefully at the picture, it is very similar to a Predator tank, or one of its variants. But the big difference is that, it doesn't have the tracks, right? It doesn't have normal tank tracks. Instead, it has these repulsor lift things that cause it to fly. So basically, it's got the fly keyword, but it's the same thing. It's a tank, right? It's got all the different types of heavy and then anti tank and anti-infantry weapons, like this smaller stubber gun right here, and then you got the Gatling autocannon for the anti-infantry, but then you got the las cannons for the anti-tank. But anyway, so yeah, this is a tank for the Primaris, right? For the Primaris Space Marines, which is the new boys on the block. And this one, different from like the Predator or some of its other variants, flies. And the cool thing is that this is specific to the Imperial Loyalist Adeptus Astartes Space Marines. The Chaos Space Marines do not have access to this because there are no Primaris in the Chaos Space Marine army, right? When the Chaos Space Marines turned to Chaos and followed Horus and the Chaos Demons away from the Imperium, they took all of the equipment they had with them, right? To include all of the tanks and vehicles and transports. But they never got new ones like the Primaris. Now, yes, the Chaos Gods did grant them some newer types of vehicles, completely different from what the Imperial Space Marines have, right? Like, for example, the Forge Fiend and that kind of stuff. They're specific to Chaos. But this is specific to the Adeptus Astartes Imperial Space Marines. And so let's go ahead and unbox this. Oh, let's look at the back first. We can kind of see here. That's really cool, right? Here's a variant, so you can do the heavy bolter variant, as opposed to this has the las gun variant, right? Okay. So, as we open this up, as the time of this recording, this retails for $85 US. Oh man, this is hard to open. $85 US or 52 pounds, or 52.5 pounds. It's a heavy transport. It can carry 10 infantry, so it's kind of like a Rhino in that regard. But at the same time, it's basically a tank, because it has strength and toughness 8, unlike the Rhino. So here you go. Beautiful picture, front and back. You can see, right, it comes with the stand because it flies. Here's the front view, and then here's the rear view with the rear hatch where the 10 infantry can come out of. Obviously, they can come out the side as well, just like a Rhino, right? Oh, that's so. I don't know. It's interesting to me that this whole repulsor thing, right? It kind of looks like tracks, like the regular Predator or Rhino tracks, but then they kind of changed it a little in how it was made to obviously make it look like not tracks, right? It's yeah, but obviously or clearly to me, tracks were the predecessor to this design. At least that's what I think. Okay, so you can see here's all the tracks, building all of it. Very nice. This is a big beefy model. Look at that. Yeah. 4 big engines in the rear. That's pretty cool. And then of course the different loadouts. You can see the different weapon options. Different gunner options. So that's kind of cool. You see that there? Now what I find interesting, and we'll look at it when we actually look at the plastic, is even though this model flies, it does not have a clear base like most flying vehicles or flying units have. They just chose to give it a regular plastic base, and I guess, you know, the girth of the tank itself kind of covers the plastic base there a little bit, so that even though you're looking at it from up above like this, or even kind of slightly angled to the side, you're not seeing that base. Instead, you're just seeing what the illusion that it's floating, right? So, yeah. But I guess so there was no need for the clear plastic, but I think it would have been nice if they had included clear plastic in that. All right, so we can see here the data sheet, right? And if we're talking about data sheet, let's go ahead and look at the loadouts. So this particular unit can have what's called a heavy onslaught Gatling cannon. It can have an Icarus Iron Hail heavy stubber, which is, you know, heavy stubber. Iron Hail, regular Iron Hail heavy stubber. The 2 Crackstorm grenade launchers, 2 Storm bolters, twin heavy bolters, Hunter Slayer missiles, and auto launchers. So that's kind of cool. There you go. There's all the loadout there. Yeah. hovers, so it has that ability to move. It flies, so it has the ability to move over other models. Now, this is interesting. Repulsor field. Opponent must subtract 2 from any charge roll it makes when it declares a charge against this unit. Right? That's cool. Oh, power of the machine spirit. Right? Does not suffer penalty for shooting heavy weapons. This auto launcher thing that I talked about earlier, interesting. Instead of shooting any weapon in the shooting phase, this model may use its auto launchers. Until your next shooting phase, your opponent must subtract 1 from any hit rolls of ranged weapons that target this vehicle. So kind of like the smoke launchers type of thing. And then of course it explodes like pretty much all vehicles do. Okay. The color palette guide. So that's cool. Some different language data sheets. Okay. Now let's look at the plastic, and I'm going to turn this sideways so it's easier for us to see the plastic here. Sprue number 1 looks like pretty much just the top, and the repulsor lifts things. Oh, I stand corrected. Look at this. The stand is clear plastic. All right, so that's cool. Thank you, Games Workshop, for taking my advice and making it clear. All right, so that's cool. Look at that. It's the 4 engines in the rear. All these are the little repulsor stand mount things or whatever, right? Sprue number 2 is basically the turret. Bunch of weapon options for the turret. Right, here's a Space Marine gunner. Yeah, that is a cool looking stubber. If this is the Icarus stubber, it looks a lot cooler than most stubbers that come with other vehicles. So that's cool. And then the third and last sprue. So this is a 3 full sprue kit. And you can see these are the actual repulsor pads that go underneath, right? And these connect to the sides. And come on, tell me that doesn't look like tracks. Or at least, you know, the regular tracks or treads on the Rhino were the inspiration for these things here, right? Come on. Here's the side. It's a very cool side. All right. So it's a cool side. And then, of course, the bottom. So if you look at the side, kind of a side profile of this vehicle, let me get a Rhino. So this is a Rhino. It's a regular Rhino, right? So you can see that this thing is substantially larger than a Rhino. And of course the Predator built off of the Rhino chassis. So it's a lot bigger than the Predator and the Rhino in terms of the length and the profile. Which, as it should be, right? Because it's Primaris. And Primaris are bigger, better, faster, stronger, right? It's a base, 100mm base. And then we have the transfers. Right? So, all right, so that's actually pretty cool. I like the fact that it's different, right? It's a new model that Games Workshop put out because of the whole Primaris concept of the new Primaris Space Marines. I like the fact that it is something that the Chaos Space Marines do not have. All right, sets it apart, makes it different. It flies, so that's cool. It's a transport that flies, and I think the only other Imperial transports that fly are actual flyers, right? So for this to be a non-aircraft flying transport, I think is kind of cool. Otherwise, that's it for today's unboxing. If you found any inaccuracies or mistakes I may have said, please feel free to leave me a comment, correct any mistakes I might have said or did. If you have any additional comments on the Primaris Repulsor, please go ahead and leave them in the comment section. Otherwise, I hope you liked this unboxing. If you did, please like and subscribe to my channel. And that is it. Grim out.